Hi everyone, welcome to The Geekly, episode 54. Today we're talking about Preacher, we're talking about Titans. Should we dive in with Preacher Series 3?
Yeah, let's talk about Preacher. I watched it previously. I've sort of dragged you into Preacher because it was something that I watched. I was like, oh yeah, it's got a new season, let's do it for the show. I remember watching season 3 the first time and not liking it, and I have no idea why. Because this time around, I was really engaged in it. We both agree this is kind of the best season of Preacher so far.
I mean, it was a low bar, but I would say this is the best season of Preacher so far. I felt the fact that there was one narrative thread that kind of went from beginning all the way through. It pivoted after 5 episodes from Angelville, more in favour of the Grail. But that's okay, you can have like a 5 and 5. I think the fact that it was 10 episodes as well really helped. But the 13 episode season 2, I think it was like 3 episodes about something, then 2 episodes about something, then 2 episodes about something, then 3, then 2. It kind of kept changing its mind about what it wanted to be. It kept kind of abandoning its narrative after like every 3 episodes to do something else. I just felt this was a coherent story told across one season of TV, and they allowed it to play itself out instead of just chickening out constantly and trying something else. It's an incredibly low bar. That's like very basic storytelling in my mind, but that's what they did, and I liked it. I think it helps that I liked Angelville. I liked the aesthetic. I liked the first season where the flashbacks have actually worked for me was this season. Really enjoyed the flashbacks. And again, like in season 2, I thought the Grail were just hilarious. Some real, it's kind of almost like absurdist humour sometimes, a kind of surrealist humour. When Star and Flufferman are talking about like the character she's going to do, she builds up this backstory. Does my character have a limp? And he's like, you and your limps. It's little things like that make me think that these guys have got such a history together. Hoover as well, Flufferman, Star, they are just dynamite when they're on screen together. So it went from Angelville, which was very dark, which I really liked, into the Grail, which was much lighter, which I liked.
Especially with the Messiah.
Oh God, especially with the Messiah. And the All-Father as well.
Yeah.
The huge All-Father. So we had darkness, we had light. It all made for a compelling, coherent season of TV in my mind.
The thing I liked about this season the most, I would agree with everything you just said, but also Tulip and Cassidy had their own stories. We got to see Tulip really kicking ass, and I would have liked her story more if she wasn't trying to save Jesse. Yeah. She was just out there, because in this season, Jesse really became a total shit.
He was almost a villain at the end of this.
Yeah, and yet they still forgave him. Anyway, yeah, the dynamics between those 3 characters is very weird. But yeah, I really enjoyed getting to see Tulip kind of be Tulip a little bit like we got to see in season 1. Whereas, you know, we talked about how in season 2 she was basically just kind of sitting around, not
pining for Jesse.
Yeah. Whereas this season she went out, she kicked ass, she did her thing. Nobody was going to give her any shit, and she didn't, ask anybody for permission, and she was kind of fairly independent from what was going on with Jesse. Then we get Cassidy's storyline. He finds another vampire. That whole dynamic was really interesting, particularly the fact that they were feeding off of other vampires. And yeah, it was a different side to Cassidy that we hadn't gotten to see, and again, it was completely independent of the Jesse storyline. We got to see Cassidy more as a more developed character than we had previously. He's still funny, still kind of quipping lines and stuff. I also really liked the conflict between Jesse and Cassidy, because they both claim to love Tulip. I don't think either of them really do. I think they're both infatuated with her for different reasons. While Tulip was in limbo, we got kind of some of her backstory, and it was done in sort of a very parody sitcom kind of way, but it was about very serious things at the same time. So I thought that was kind of probably one of my favorite moments, was her in limbo. I liked that.
Can we just talk about Cassidy and the Children of Blood for a little while? Because he is such a great character, but he's been the third wheel in this kind of love triangle between Jesse and Tulip, and he's just been really underused. And so when Jesse tried to FedEx him away, I thought was hilarious. Then he came to the fight, and then Tulip took him to the bus. He went back to New Orleans, and that whole story with the Children of Blood, I just thought was really well told. And it allowed him to, spread his wings. It allowed him to flex his muscles and actually we were able to see a story that's centered around him. One line that really struck me was when Cassidy said, being a vampire sucks. And Icarius said, perhaps you've been doing it wrong. And I just thought, I wish I could get Seth Rogen and saying, the vampire in your story sucks. You've been doing it wrong. And finally, we had this storyline with the Children of Blood where he just was allowed to be a vampire, and it was absolutely enthralling. The idea that Icarius was teaching him actually these vampire, like how to fly, how to like transform into like animals, how to, was it mystify?
Yeah.
Mystify?
Or like mesmerize.
Mesmerize. It was mesmerize. How to mesmerize people. And that he had no idea that he potentially could have these powers. I thought it was just brilliant. I mean, it was never going to be forever because the twist was, we get that like every other TV show, you know, they're sent off to this place. Of course they're not. They're obviously killed. But the idea of them almost being together when they have the kind of romantic relationship going, I could have seen them together actually. I quite like them together, but it was doomed to end. So I just really liked that whole storyline, and it was nice to see him flourish as a character because he's deserved it really.
I like the contrast between the two characters because like Icarius is kind of the quintessential vampire. He's stuck in the past. Everything is really formal, and then you throw Cassidy into the mix, and Cassidy is as modern can be. And, you know, him giving Hoover the umbrella hat and talking about dreaming about umbrellas and kind of breaking the sort of poser performance that the Children of Blood have and sort of finding a group that actually values him. Like, he became part of their community and he sort of rescued them from Icarius. We really got to see Cassidy come into his own. He started questioning things about himself. You know, at one point he did say, maybe I have been doing it wrong. I thought that being a vampire was this, you know, horrible, awful thing, but, you know, maybe there are good sides to it. And then, of course, he finds out that all the special powers he could have only happen if he kills other vampires.
I don't want him to team up with Jesse and Tulip. I want him to be his own thing.
I don't mind him so much with Tulip. I like the interplay between him and Tulip. If we could have the show without Jesse, it would be great. I mean, they might have to change the title.
I think Cassidy liked to see maybe a potential for romance there, but I think she was like, yeah, just, I'm saving you, but I'm also not that broken up about you going. There were the phone calls a few times.
Yeah, I mean, I think they have a weird sort of love-hate relationship, the two of them. When I said I'd like to see them together again, I don't necessarily mean as like having a shared storyline, but kind of, you know, they each have their own storylines and they sort of overlap and they come in and so maybe, you know, like for an episode or two, Tulip and Cassidy are working on something together and then they again go on their own kind of separate ways sort of thing. But yeah, I really enjoyed this season.
Let's think about what didn't work. Everything to do with Eugene and Hitler did not work. I wish that had been condemned to the skip of season 2. They shouldn't have been allowed to escape out of it. They should have maybe walked off into the world to try and have a second go at life. And that was the last time we ever heard of them because it was just every time. We had 5 great episodes and the beginning of season 6, this whole thing about Eugene and Hitler. Momentum killer. Bang.
Yeah, because I mean, what really happened from that storyline?
Yeah.
Satan's dead now and Hitler is running hell. Plus, can I just say, hell fucking garish as fuck. Every time it came on, I just kind of inwardly cringed.
Yeah.
It was like,
my first line under the Eugene and Hitler is hell aesthetic, great. I absolutely loved it. I loved the bridge. I loved his his little hell suite with his desk and stuff. The floor was like LED like flames. Yeah. I thought it was absolutely spot on. It was the only thing about the entire hell Eugene thing that I liked.
I hated it.
I mean, I can only assume Eugene has some bigger role. Is he going to be the Messiah? Because it was this moment where I think Star said, who will be the Messiah? And then the next shot was Eugene's face. I just wonder if that's why he's still in this show, because I do not know why we're still getting Eugene at this point.
I have no answer to that question. I mean, he's gone off with the Saint of Killers now to hunt down Jesse. Eugene doesn't strike me as the kind of guy who would seek revenge. Like, his joining up with the Saint kind of felt forced to me.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to commit any kind of vengeance. They'll probably just talk it out, which happens most of the scenes in this show. I think Flufferman's one of my favourite characters.
I really liked Hoover, however briefly he was in it. And Star, I think, is like perfect.
One of my favourite lines was when Flufferman said to Star, I'll call you from the car. Why? I'll text you from the plane. Why? I'll see you when the mission is done, sir. And then she just leaves. And when Hoover said, I told you I was a vampire, and Star's like, I thought you were kidding. Great interplay between the three of them. We can't end talking about Preacher without talking about the lateral palm slice, which happened in episode 2, where Jesse did a kind of blood pact with his grandma. I'll pose you the question I've posed to you frequently. Why do people put a knife in their palm, close their hand, drag it along the palm, drop some blood out, rather than pricking a finger? We've seen this recently in Krypton, Game of Thrones, The Orville,
everything.
A million other shows. We will never have an answer to this question, but I'll ask you anyway. Why do they do it?
I think probably for drama's sake. If you're going to cut yourself, and I've said this before, you do not cut yourself on the palm of your hand because that shit is not going to heal.
Yeah.
And you're not going to be able to use your hand for, like, fucking ever. Plus the fact that just, like, slicing your hand like that is not going to get that much blood to, like, drip out of your hand. You need to, like, cut yourself somewhere near a vein, preferably. But I would think that, yeah, for most of these packs, pricking a finger and, like, making a stamp or signing in blood or whatever should be sufficient. But, yeah, I don't understand this. It's one of the things that I hate as well.
Found object bathroom weaponry. Sorry. Right, Titans.
I would say I could have done without pretty much the entire episode except for the Deathstroke reveal. So the first episode of season 2 felt like the end of season 1, and this felt like they're just kind of setting things in motion. I mean, we ended the last episode with a really great shot of like the new Titans all together, but then what are they doing?
It was all heavy lifting. Because they've spent the entire episode trying to get everybody to Titan's Tower. Somebody called Dr. Light sent someone to blow up Hank and Dawn's house. They're now heading to San Francisco. Somebody from Coriander's home planet has kidnapped her. Donna Troy left alone thinking, what the fuck's happened? She's now going to head to San Francisco. So they're going to have these two, they're going to have Dr. Light and they're going to have this Corey kidnapping. While also, obviously, at Titan's Tower, they've got this... They've got Slade Wilson's daughter hanging out there. So those are all the kind of, presumably, the season's worth of plot points. You know, like in films, they're having war and they've got those little things to push all the pieces together.
Going to say the same thing.
Yeah, this is the pushing of all the pieces together on the board. They are now together. They'll come up with some kind of big thing. They'll probably all get new outfits, new uniforms. And then as a team, well, they might send different people out together to deal with multiple problems at the same time, which would be a great way of dealing with a big cast.
Yeah.
Having the kind of adult thought in their brains, we don't need to do these things one by one. We've got a big cast. These are good, already made superheroes. Not a few of them having their kind of origins, but we've got some leaders here. Let's send them out and deal with these problems together. And that's what presumably is going to happen next. But I think you're entirely right. Early on in the season, we had the kind of the weird, we had to resolve season 1. We've got the new bit in episode 1 as well, where we've seen the tower, but this was moving people. This was heavy lifting and nothing more, really.
This episode just felt a little bit directionless, and even the characters said at one point, all we're doing is training. Like, what the fuck is this? I mean, they didn't literally say, what the fuck is this? But, you know, that was
They said it with their eyes.
Yeah, they said it with their eyes. That was the implication. That, you know, we're not doing anything, we're just training.
We didn't really talk last week about Deathstroke, kind of seeing him about to put on the uniform. What do you think is going to be happening with this story?
I actually have no idea, and it's like I'm really sort of puzzled by my reaction to it, because Deathstroke isn't really one of those characters that I'm like, oh yay, Deathstroke.
Yeah.
But the way they did it in this is introducing his daughter first and whatever weird powers she has, and then Jason Todd, and I can never just like, he's always Jason Todd. He's never just Jason. Yeah. He's Jason Todd.
Jason is Jason Voorhees, the murderer from the... Yeah.
Fair point. Jason Todd and Gar sitting at the computer trying to figure it out, and like the realization, and then knowing that at the same time that they're finding out that this is actually Slade Wilson's daughter, Dick is out somewhere almost being killed with her, and he has no idea who this girl actually is, just that her name is Rose.
Let's briefly talk about Hank and Dawn. Hank seems to be in recovery from addiction.
Yeah, because he was doing, like, they briefly showed us that he was popping pain pills in season 1, but they didn't really go into it. So again, it's another thing that happened off screen that we're supposed to be catching up with. I feel like they're setting him up to be a trainer for the Titans.
Yeah.
Probably both of them. Dawn's inability to give up Dove is obviously going to bring them back to the Titans, and I foresee them, because they, you know, like Hank says, you know, they want a family, they want a normal life, they want all of this, and kind of a way for them to have the best of both worlds is if they train the new Titans, and then kind of have their normal life. And so I feel like that their whole storyline of like the kid with the horse and the addiction and the meth lab, that was basically just kind of a big huge billboard saying these are going to be the new teachers, kind of like the X-Men.
Yeah, it's nice to see Hank kind of at peace with himself. He was a very kind of angry, quick to try and beat Dick up on a few occasions. seems in a much better place. He's obviously got the hip issue. He can't be doing the superhero lifestyle anymore. But yeah, Dawn just cannot seem to give it up. I did think it was interesting where he said, like, basically you've got to make a choice. You know, it's the life or it's me. And just as they're about to have that conversation, their cabin kind of explodes due to Dr. Light. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what becomes of the two of them together. But yeah, like you said, it's kind of foreshadowing them. We're going back to San Francisco. He seems to be a good teacher. She obviously is still in the game. Yeah, let's see what they make of the young recruits.
And I mean, I think that could work really well. Like, I wasn't super into Hank and Dawn in season 1, mostly because of when we got their story. It was placed very badly, and I think potentially their backstory could have been saved for season 2. We didn't actually need it in season 1. We just needed to know that kind of the bits of backstory that Dick was involved in, like when he was still Robin and he went to go fight with them, and they were kind of like, does Batman know you're out with us? I thought you weren't. I thought you were banned from playing with us, kind of thing, because we're the bad kids. You know, that was kind of good backstory, and it fit the moment. But the huge thing about like how they got started could have been better suited to an episode in season 2. You mentioned that you liked the number of different storylines happening. I felt that there were too many different storylines happening, or that they didn't carry them through, because we had like the Dr. Light thing that was very brief, and then we had the Rose Wilson thing, and then kind of the last shot of Deathstroke. We had Corey's kidnapping, whatever she and Donna have started doing together, which seems to be like working with the police or something to bring down different criminals. They're in a surveillance van anyway. There's the storyline about Jason being sent away from Wayne Manor as kind of a punishment because he broke too many rules, and you know, kind of bucking against Dick's leadership. We still have the like warm and cuddly Bruce Wayne, which I do not like. I really do not like.
That accent has got worse over the course of the 2 episodes. Yeah, it's all I can think about, really. He seems to really be struggling with it. I know he's Ian Glenn, but presumably he had an audition. He wasn't just hired from being Jorah Mormont. You'd think that people might do like accents or something, and you have to it has to be part of the consideration.
But you think about like how many times shows have accent coaches for various actors. Like, surely DC can afford to get a voice coach for him to be like, no, this is actually how Americans speak.
It should just been somebody American.
I mean, it would have been an easier option. I mean, there are droves and droves of American actors out there. There's no shortage of them.
We'll have to next week fan cast Bruce Wayne.
Fan cast Bruce Wayne.
Specifically this Bruce Wayne.
It's such a shame because I know you were really excited about the prospect of it, and I was a bit intrigued as well because I did like him as Jorah Mormont.
It's nice to get like a genre TV star to fit in a genre TV role. You know, if someone's does really well on TV, he's been in like 8 series of Game of Thrones. I mean, he's, you know, that's not nothing. In my worst nightmares, I didn't think his voice would be this bad. All I thought about was he's a British person playing an American. Every single time that happens, my ear is waiting for the accent. If it's in film, if it's in TV, if it's the other way around, if American's playing a British person, like 90% of my judging of their performance will be the accent. And so when it's this disappointing, that there is a whole cloud over him. Haven't even referenced how warm and fuzzy he is, because that's almost like a completely separate thing. If he was an American being warm and fuzzy, it would be just 1,000 times better than somebody with a dodgy American accent being warm and fuzzy. So it's a double negative.
I think the accent is annoying, but I kind of overlook it because I'm quite used to overlooking British people doing bad American accents.
It's fair enough, yeah.
Because they all do the same kind of Midwestern, twangy, obnoxious, like the most obnoxious American accent that you can pick, regardless of where in the States they're supposed to be from.
I have like 5 American accents, all terrible, but at least they're from different parts of the country.
So yeah, I can overlook the bad American accent, and likewise I'm quite used to bad British accents by American actors as well, particularly it's not British, but particularly the Irish accent. American actors seem to really, really struggle with doing the Irish accent. They do this like leprechaun-y, that is a different story.
Don Cheadle, Ocean's 11, 12 and 13, I think he was in all of them.
I have huge issues with the warm fuzzy thing, though. I cannot, he's sitting there on the phone with Dick and like being very fatherly and affectionate, and that is not Bruce Wayne. I fully believe that Bruce Wayne really does care about his various charges that he brings in and indoctrinates into his vigilante lifestyle, but he's not going to have this warm fuzzy way of expressing it. And I think at one point he said to Dick, I wouldn't have done it. I would have done everything the same. And it was just kind of like, yeah, if you're gonna have Bruce be warm and fuzzy, you need to have proper lead up to it. You need to have a proper motivation for it. And I don't think it's something that would come naturally to him. I think that it should be played where he's really kind of awkwardly trying to be warm and fuzzy and not really quite succeeding, and the other people are kind of having to be like, okay, well, this is Bruce.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about it briefly last week. I said Keaton's Batman. You said Ben Affleck's Batman. No big screen Batman, with the exception, I think, was it George Clooney, had Chris O'Donnell. They've never had Robins. They've never had Jason Todd's. They've never had Dick Grayson. No, so they've never had Dick Grayson's, Tim Drake's, or Jason Todd's, or Damian Wayne's. I mean, is this show, and I'm really bending over backwards to try and help the show here, which it doesn't deserve, but is the show basically saying after having two of these, he's had some child in his life at two separate points? Is that what the show's trying to say? There's maybe he's melted slightly.
Maybe.
But we don't like it. It's possible, but we don't like it.
It's possible, but we don't like it. I mean, I think it could also be possible that, because he's just taken on Jason Todd, he's looking at his time with Dick Grayson with kind of rose-tinted glasses, because I think Dick probably followed the rules a lot more than Jason Todd does. But again, it's just not in his character. And I think we could have an occasional moment of him being sort of soft and cuddly and having Dick kind of act surprised by it. I mean, even if we had Dick kind of being like, what is wrong with you? I could cope better with Bruce Wayne being warm and fuzzy.
Yeah.
But Dick just acts like it's completely normal last season he was saying fuck Batman, and he was really, really anti Batman and anti Bruce Wayne, and this season they're father son mentory buddies again.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel true.
So not great, but we know that they're kind of moving into position for hopefully bigger stories down the line.
That's probably it for this week. Next week we're going to be doing some of Preacher Season 4, more Titans.
American Horror Story.
Very exciting stuff. We're also, if you're in the Kent area, we're going to be doing a talk at the University of Kent in the Templeman Library at 6 p.m. on September 26th about podcasting and the Geekly and Geek Nerd podcasts and all the different things we do. So come along to that. It's free, and you'll get to meet us lovely people.
And get some badges.
Who doesn't love badges? You can find us on patreon.com/geeknerd if you want to help support what we do and get us new equipment and cool perks and stuff like that. We're also on facebook.com/thegeekly and Twitter @geeknerdpod.
And I would just like to say, on behalf of the Geekly, congratulations to TV's Ash Ketchum. He has been trying for 22 years to win a Pokemon League, and finally the anime character won the Alola League. So congratulations to 10-year-old Ash Ketchum, who 22 years into his started in 1990, must have been 97, has finally won a Pokemon League. Yeah, so congratulations from us to Ash Ketchum.
And on that note...
And on that slightly strange note, goodbye.